WWE has announced a main roster call-up. Guys, some very interesting breaking news in this video. We'll get to that in just a moment. As always, timestamps in the description down below. I want to kick things off with AEW just very briefly. 2.0 has reportedly signed a contract extension with AEW, and this is fantastic news. The report came from Fightful Select earlier today that 2.0 did sign an extension. And look, guys, 2.0 is part of a really big storyline, obviously with their inclusion in the Jericho Appreciation Society. But it just kind of goes to show you that WWE didn't necessarily do anything with NXT. They've come to AEW, and I wouldn't say they're the biggest deal in the company, but they've definitely been given a lot of love creatively and, of course, with their booking. What I really want to see moving forward, though, is AEW push them as a true tag team. You know, I think Jericho Appreciation Society might be running its course, and these guys are obviously very, very good at wrestling, but the best part about their act is that they are also very good entertainers, and they understand the character portion of being a wrestler. So the idea of these guys being able to chase after tag team championship belts is something I'm totally on board with. They have a fantastic AEW tag team division in that company. But when I look at the tag team division, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more of a bigger focus on it. Swerve and Keith Lee are doing a great job as champions. FTR, obviously great competitors in the company. But I feel like with the, arrival of trios titles and stuff, my biggest fear is that the tag team title belts become a little bit less relevant. And I'm hoping that's not the case. I feel like the tag team division has always been a very major strength for AEW. With AEW extending the contract of 2.0, I would like to see them get that opportunity at some point, especially when you look at newer teams like Ass Boys, and then of course Gun Club, right? And then you got the Acclaimed. You have so many great tag teams in this company. FTR, you can never forget about them. I think once 2.0 gets that real big marquee storyline for the tag team championship belts, it is going to be heavily praised because they are that good. Kind of goes to show you that WWE dropped the ball by not necessarily utilizing them in WWE NXT when they were formerly known as Everrise, but nonetheless, they are back in AEW for the foreseeable future. Guys, Karrion Kross mentioned something very interesting on the Corey Graves After the Bell podcast. So one of the things that he mentioned was one of his head instructors for jiu-jitsu, Daniel Gracie, actually encouraged Karrion Kross to relocate to Philadelphia to fight in the UFC. And then essentially, more to that, there was a scenario in which Karrion Kross was speaking with David Feldman from Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. He was actually on the verge of taking a 3-fight deal. So not only were they doing a lot of television products, movies, obviously he's writing a book, now he's back in Smackdown, but there was this really close opportunity for him to do legitimate fighting, and that is something that would always intrigue me about Karrion Kross. I don't know exactly how his wrestling skills translate into that world. Bare knuckle fighting, there's a lot of people that have gone into Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, and they may have been in the UFC, they go into BKFC, and they're not really that good. But Karrion Kross has always struck me as a person who would do pretty well in those types of sports. And the fact that we probably won't see it kind of sucks. I definitely have a lot of intrigue there. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Karrion Kross and his work. I think everything he has done in WWE since his return has been pretty magical. And I feel like even after he got released by WWE, the fact that he didn't go to AEW or any of these other companies, the fact that he stayed independent, was staying true to himself, doing things his way, it was really enjoyable to see. I think Karrion Kross doing Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship would have definitely been interesting to watch. And I also cannot forget to mention how intrigued I would have been to see Karrion Kross fight in the UFC. I think there would have been a lot of great opportunities between some cross promotion between AEW, WWE, whichever company landed Karrion Kross. If he was fighting in the UFC and he was able to do both, kind of like how Bobby Lashley was doing Bellator and Impact, I think a lot of people would have been tuning in for that, and that would have been a great way for wrestling and MMA to come together. Does this mean that he won't be able to ever do it again? I don't know, but obviously with WWE, you want to protect your superstars. You don't want them losing in the UFC. You don't want them actually legitimately getting hurt, especially when they are fighting on TV in WWE. And I always look at Jake Hager as a great example. Jake Hager hasn't fought too often, but he's had some great performances in Bellator. But of course, there is that risk of Jake Hager going into Bellator, coming back, being all bruised up and damaged, and then he can't wrestle. So there's obviously going to be that concern, but it's a very cool thing to know that Karrion Kross could have been doing that, and I would have been really intrigued by it. And guys, for our breaking news, WWE has announced that Toxic Attraction are moving up to SmackDown to take place in the SmackDown on SmackDown for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship belt. So Shawn Michaels actually released a video on Twitter talking about how he spoke to Adam Pearce, and they've made the decision to pull Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark from the match due to injury. And in place, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane have been called up to take their spot in the tournament. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Gigi Dolan and, of course, JC Jane. Whether or not Mandy Rose will be with them on the main roster tonight for this tag team tournament, we have yet to know. We have yet to see any sort of information or anything like that. But the idea that Toxic Attraction could eventually be setting up a 6-woman tag match against Bayley, Io Sky, and Dakota Kai is something that is very intriguing. 2 new trios in WWE's main roster. I like it, man. You know, and I think the best idea for WWE is to kind of keep them separate for a while because you don't really want any of them to take a loss at this point. But I think WWE making the call up for Toxic Attraction is great news. And what is the future of this? And I also really want to point out, too, I'm very impressed by the fact that Shawn Michaels posted a video on Twitter to discuss this breaking news and offer some logic as to why Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark are not on the show. Because quite honestly, in the past, under the Vince McMahon era, WWE was not always known for explaining their actions. Sometimes they just do things and it happens so abruptly and then nobody understands why. So this is another piece to the puzzle in which Vince McMahon's era is no longer a thing. WWE is really trying to make even the small things matter. This is one of those small things. Now, as far as where I see Toxic Attraction going in this tournament, I will be completely honest with you guys. I don't expect them to win. I think right now the priority has to be Io Sky and Dakota Kai. They made a major return. I do see them winning the tournament. But if this tournament can lead to an eventual feud, if this could plant the seed for an eventual feud between the two groups, quite honestly, I would be very happy with that. It doesn't have to be rushed. It doesn't have to be done right away. But I do think at some point it has to happen. And by the way, this is WWE putting a huge emphasis on women's tag teams. And I like that. I feel like WWE definitely dropped the ball under the Vince McMahon era. Triple H is picking up that ball and he is running with it. So this is something I definitely like. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. As always, I'm keeping you guys updated with everything that's happening in pro wrestling. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button and don't forget to check out the links in the description, Discord, Twitch, all of these other great things that we're doing together in our community. Check it out down below.